It's well known that road bikes can hit speeds of 80 km on descents, leaving ordinary electric scooters in the dust instantly. With the if you can't beat 'em, join 'em mentality, this man asked the blonde guy to let him join the cycling club. He thought this was a sport so simple even a dog could do it, but Fukutomi only allowed him to practice on stationary rollers. Despite the resentment in Arakita's heart, he had no choice but to obey. After finally finishing 2 hours, Fukutomi unexpectedly added 2 more. Furious, Arakita smashed the timer with a single punch at this moment. He was convinced that Fukutomi was just making a fool out of him. Humiliated and enraged, he was ready to lash out with his fists. The next second, he collapsed straight to the ground. Clearly, the intensity of the first day's training had already pushed him far beyond his limits. Facing reality, Arakita began to train desperately, determined to prove through hard work that he was second to none. Fukutomi took note of his dedication, and to show him what a real gap in skill looks like, Fukutomi took Arakita to an actual race. As the starting gun fired, the riders shot off the line like arrows, but Arakita was left trailing at the very back from the start, staring at the massive pack of riders ahead. Finally realized how weak he truly was. But thinking of Fukutomi's arrogant face, a surge of anger boiled up inside him. He accelerated frantically, completely ignoring the limits of his physical endurance. His goal wasn't just to win the race anymore, but to knock Fukutomi off his high horse. Driven by sheer will, Arakita actually managed to catch up to Fukutomi in the lead. After this trial, Fukutomi could see that this kid was a natural-born rider. Lying on the ground gasping for air, Arakita was exhausted as he heard the bikes whizzing past his ears. He finally realized just how many people he had overtaken. In a daze, he felt as if he had ascended to a whole new level. From then on, Arakita trained harder than ever before. To test the results of his training, Fukutomi decided to take him to a race in the Manazuru region, but a moment later, he was mocked by an opponent. When Fukutomi was asked what rank they were aiming for, those words made the opponent even more arrogant. Thinking his own prowess had intimidated them, Fuming Arakita lashed out at Fukutomi on the rooftop, unaware that he had misunderstood Fukutomi's true intentions. The reason Fukutomi said second place was because he saw Arakita's raw hunger for victory, though he decided to act as a domestique himself to help Arakita win the title. The day of the race soon arrived. To ensure nothing went wrong, Fukutomi lent his own road bike to Arakita. Armed with his ultimate weapon, Arakita's confidence soared, and he fully trusted that Fukutomi would lead him to victory. As the starting pistol fired, the two shot forward like arrows from a bow, instantly breaking away from the pack of riders. Looking at Fukutomi's broad back, Arakita's heart swelled with gratitude. If not for that unexpected encounter that day, he never would have realized that reality can be overturned. Simply hanging your head won't drive the bike forward. One must cast aside the past and all attachments. Only then can you push forward with everything you've got. Shut up. Shut up, You'll rise again. I'll face you head on, that's for sure. Let's see who else dares to talk big. Realizing his physical strength was almost spent, this man chose to burn his final embers for the sake of the team. With one final burst, Arakita surged to the very front. Their overwhelming speed left the Hiroshima team in the dust instantly, leaving Aikichi staring in utter disbelief. After all, he's the notorious fighting dog, the one who never lets go once he sinks his teeth into you. But even with Aikichi giving it 100, he couldn't even catch a glimpse of their tail. When Arakita offered to buy him a Coke, Aikichi's arrogant pride was instantly shattered. He realized that even if he caught up now, he couldn't compete in the realm ahead. They were utterly defeated both in mental fortitude and fighting spirit. Meanwhile, led by Arakita, the three finally rejoined the lead pack, though it took their combined coordination to pull off this unprecedented feat. Now that they've returned to their respective teams, they are enemies once more. Lucky me. Just then, a roar erupted from the crowd as the rest of the teammates finally arrived. At last, the full squads of Sohoku and Hakone were assembled. Seeing this, Midosuji grew anxious. Hiroshima was supposed to help them, so why isn't there a single trace of them? To this, Midosuji replied, "Stop. Whining races are never won by numbers. Only a few survivors ever reach the final stretch, and I alone am enough to seize the victory. Now only 5 kilometers remain until the sprint checkpoint." Shinkai suddenly surged forward, pulling Fukutomi along. It seemed like they were gunning for the sprint point, but Tadokoro knew it was a feint. Their true target was the finish line. Immediately pulled Kenju into the chase at that moment. The overwhelming aura from both sides left Onoda gasping for air. He had never experienced such an intense race at this critical juncture. He was a little little overwhelmed. Fortunately, Makishima reassured him in time. This helped Onoda compose himself, but in the next second, Arakita suddenly surged forward. On the sprint sector of the final day, he intended to lead Hakone to victory. As Arakita continued to accelerate, Tadokoro was actually gapped by a bike length. This scene left the surrounding spectators in disbelief. This guy had just finished a grueling battle, yet he still had so much left in the tank. Only Fukutomi sensed something was wrong. This riding rhythm felt like an all-or-nothing charge, and it was exactly as he suspected. Arakita had long reached his limit. He was now using every last drop of his strength. Give Hakone one final push. In a daze, he recalled when he first started cycling. Naturally clumsy, he couldn't ride at all. Fukutomi, despite being his captain, never gave him any direct coaching, but told him to figure it out himself with just those simple words. He practiced for 3 years, and now he could finally honor all that hard work. Just 100 meters before finishing his pull, Arakita suddenly stopped dancing. Saying this, Shinkai immediately stepped forward to take the lead. Yes, sir. It's done for the day. The man squeezed out the last bit of strength in his body, having a path to the championship with blood and sweat. He secured a 200-meter lead for the team, yet he was dropped due to complete exhaustion. This is the ruthlessness and cruelty of road racing. Onoda looked at the scene in disbelief. Imaizumi told him to engrave this moment in his memory. Eventually, their own team Sohoku would also have to splinter like this. He must be prepared to be dropped when the time comes. Those words seemed to strike a chord deep within Onoden. This is his last year riding with the seniors for the sake of victory. He is willing to do whatever it takes for the team. These words instantly ignited the team's fighting spirit. Haruko and Imaizumi took the initiative to start pulling at the front. As the two pushed together, the gap between Sohoku and Hakone began to close. To catch up as quickly as possible, the two of them gave it absolutely everything they had. Instantly, the entire team began advancing at a blistering pace. Seeing how hard Imaizumi and Naruko were pushing, Onoda was eager to contribute his own strength to the team. Suddenly, they hit a stretch of rough, bumpy road. Tadokoro-jin quickly signaled him to pull back, but Onoda charged forward without a moment's hesitation. In this moment, all he wanted was to give his all for the team. He had long since cast aside any concern for his own safety. To win the Inter-High and bring Sohoku's jersey to the finish line. Driven by their hunger for victory, the three finally caught up with Hakone. Little did they know this was exactly as Fukutomi had anticipated. His command, Izumida immediately launched into a sprint. They would soon reach the mountain stage, thinning out the ranks. Would actually favor the team. Now Izumida had to use every ounce of his strength to create as much of an advantage for the team as possible, and Izumida did not disappoint. As one of Hakone Academy's 6 elite regulars, he displayed an unprecedented level of power, instantly opening up a 500-meter gap over Sohoku, now completely spent and unable to pull any longer. He could only entrust the team's hopes to his teammates. Seeing Itomida being dropped like shed-weight on Oda, and the others were overcome with urgency. If we don't find a way to catch up now, there will never be another chance to strike back. Just as the three were about to push harder, Kinjo called out to them from behind. Now, there is very little distance left to the finish line. The gap with Hakugaku is gradually widening. They must increase their cadence. They can no longer afford to ride by the book. As third-year seniors, they would use everything they have to close the gap for the team. With Kinjo's sudden burst of power, the entire team exploded with unprecedented speed. In this moment, Onoda finally realized just how terrifying the strength of the third years truly is. To avoid holding the seniors, that Naruko told them to drop them, since they are nothing but dead weight right now. But Makishima immediately refused, because Kinjo had assigned them a special mission. The three of them must watch their seniors' backs as they enter the mountains. Why are you taking him? The man simply tapped his teammate's hip. The teammate instantly transformed like a demon, surging forward at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, he left Sohoku in the dust. Onoda was stunned by the sight. Keep in mind, they were already going 60 km/h, a speed even ordinary scooters might struggle to match. Yet Shinkai was able to blow past them in an instant. This is simply not a speed attainable by ordinary humans. At this moment, with only 1.5 kilometers left to the base of the climb, if they can't catch Hakugaku now, they'll never have a chance to turn the tables. Realizing this, Tadokoro volunteered to take the pull, telling Kinjo and Makishima to save their legs. He is going all out to lead the chase. With that, Tadokoro unleashed his full power. His pride and joy The human bullet train was every bit as fast as Shinkai, seeing him sprinting so recklessly. Naruko and the others realized Tadokoro is sacrificing himself to seize one last chance for the team. As Tadokoro hammers the pedals faster and faster, the gap between them and Hakone gradually narrows. But Fukutomi won't give them hope. He orders Shinkai to push their speed to the limit. Unfortunately, they still underestimated Tadokoro's resolve. Even if his legs break, he's determined to squeeze out every last drop of energy. As Sohoku's rampaging human bullet, his willpower won't lose to anyone. With only 500 meters left until the foot of the climb, Tadokoro actually manages to catch up to Hakone's tail. The entire Hakone team is stunned by this sight. They never expected this massive powerhouse to close such an impossible gap at the very last moment. Little did they know this wasn't even Tadokoro's limit. Relying solely on his sheer will and fighting spirit, he pulls Sohoku neck and neck, with Hakone having fulfilled his duty. He can finally drop back with honor. Everyone watches in disbelief as memories of their battles together flash through their minds like a revolving lantern. At this moment, Shinkai also pulls out of the line. Hakone is now left with their ace and support, entering the mountain road with their strongest possible formation. But unexpectedly, Sohoku, who was right on Hakone's heels, is suddenly and inexplicably left behind.
How is this possible?
Just as he prepares to sprint with everything he has, his knee is hit by a sudden sharp pain, and he is instantly overtaken. To make matters worse, his body is reaching its absolute limit in every way. He watches helplessly as this golden opportunity slips through his fingers. Senseless regret and self-reproach surged within Kinyo's heart. Why hadn't he just used an enema before the race? Maybe that damn constipation would have been long gone by now. Just as he was on the brink of despair, a small hand rested on his shoulder. The newcomer was none other than the four-eyed Onodon. Looking at that punchable face of his, a daring idea flashed through Kinjo's mind. Kinyo hit the brakes to fall back, reaching out both arms to pull the trio close and give his orders. They were to follow Makishima up the mountain while he found a toilet to handle his business. Whoever wins this race will inherit the captaincy of Sohoku next year. The trio was absolutely stunned by these words. They were clearly just first-year freshmen, yet they were suddenly expected to shoulder such a heavy responsibility. Talk about passing the buck, this is on another level. However, Kinyo couldn't hold it in any longer. He didn't give a damn about anything else and warned them, do not give up. He would regroup with them after emptying his bowels. With a roar from him, the four burst forward with unprecedented speed, surging hundreds of meters ahead in an instant. Relieved by the sight, Kinyo felt he could finally go and let it all out. Meanwhile, Hakone Academy was already far in the lead, saying that Sohoku only had 4 riders left. Fukutomi knew Kinyo must have finally lost it. Even though victory seemed certain just to be safe, he still told Tudu not to let his guard down. And he was right to be cautious. Naruko, who was never good at climbing, suddenly asked Onoda to let him pull. Gripping the drops, he accelerated instantly. To everyone's surprise, the sprinter Naruko wasn't slowed down by the incline. On the contrary, he actually doubled his speed. Imaizumi was stunned by the scene. He never expected Naruko would go this far to show off, actually mastering such a secret technique in private. What's even more incredible is that while he's mid-climb, he's still engaging with the crowd and feeding off their applause. This made Imaizumi, trailing behind him, extremely annoyed, as Naruko was completely stealing his thunder. As they draw closer to the summit, the crowds lining the track grow even denser, passionately cheering and shouting for Naruko. All that encouragement seems to have become a source of power for Naruko, and his speed continues to ramp up amidst the cheers. Being the ultimate showman, he even raises his hand, urging the spectators to cheer even louder for Sohoku. Hearing those deafening waves of cheers, Onoda can't help but feel a surge of pride for Naruko, but Imaizumi, right behind them, isn't so convinced. Naruko's riding style looks impressive, but it's draining his stamina at an exponential rate. At this climbing pace, he'll definitely hit his limit within 2.5 kilometers. Just as he said that, Naruko finally stops dancing on the pedals, slumping back into the saddle and gasping for air just as Onoda thinks he's finished. Naruko turns back with a wicked grin. He mocks Imaizumi for not understanding the joy of showmanship. If he's going to show off, he's damn well going to see it through. It turns out Naruko had already anticipated this problem long before the race. While sprint climbing offers a burst of speed, it's a massive drain on physical strength, and your pace usually plummets the moment you sit back down. To compensate for this, he came up with the idea of sitting on the very tip of the saddle to maintain power in his muscles while swaying his arms to generate extra leverage. Claiming it's due to flare-ups, the man can only sit on the very front of his saddle while riding by constantly swaying his body from side to side with his arms, leading his teammates in a sprint up the mountain climb. You'd think this style of riding was already crazy enough, but Naruko's wild ride has only just begun. He pours all his remaining water over his head and takes the most treacherous line on the road. Pushing for the most extreme line, Naruko's arm is grazed by the guardrail, a sight that leaves Imaizumi and Onoda deeply worried. The two immediately pull up to take over the lead. Naruko ignores their suggestion entirely. Instead, he warns them to be careful of the guardrails. Then he increases his out-of-the-saddle dancing speed once more. In this high-stakes final stage, he has no regard for his own safety. The only priority is reaching the finish line first to bring Sohoku's jersey to the podium in glory. However, after pulling the pack for so long, Naruko is completely spent and his vision is starting to blur. He can no longer see the road ahead. He knows that as long as he pedals with everything he has, he's doing his job. Naruko accidentally hits a flag, making his vision even more clouded. Now, he can only see the white line on the ground. But as long as his legs keep moving, he believes they will eventually catch their rivals. Onoda offers to take the lead again, but Naruko shuts him down instantly, pushes through the exhaustion, insisting on continuing. But in reality, he is talking to thin air. To keep his teammates from worrying, he uses his weakness in climbing as an excuse, asking Onoda to call out the next turn for him. He's determined to lead the team to catch Hakono. Seeing Naruko's burning spirit, Onoda can't bring himself to stop him. He began acting as his navigator, calling out the road conditions from behind. Listening to Onoda's detailed guidance, Naruko felt a deep sense of relief and pride. The clueless rookie from back then has finally grown into such a reliable teammate. After rounding a massive curve, Onoda stared ahead in utter disbelief. They had finally caught up to Hakone. Hearing this, Naruko broke into a wide, triumphant grin. He had finally fulfilled his mission, and his strength vanished like a deflating balloon. Under the watchful eyes of his teammates, he finally dropped back from the pack. Watching Naruko fade into the distance, memories of their journey flooded back. From the moment they met to their grueling training and finally to this national stage, the three had supported each other all the way, promising to cross the finish line together. In his heart, Naruko kept apologizing to Imaizumi and Onoda. He was the one who made the promise, yet he was the first to break it. Now, the rest is entirely up to the three of them.
Naruko, I need you to keep moving forward with me. Let's take a look.
He glanced to his side, only to realize he was already completely surrounded by opponents. To break the deadlock, he hugged the wall and sped forward at full throttle, though his arm scraped against the wall until it was raw and bleeding. Nothing could break his iron will. Finally, he successfully caught up to Fukutomi. Just when everyone thought Imaizumi was spent, they emerged from the tunnel, and he suddenly began dancing out of the saddle once again. This sight left Fukutomi completely stunned. He didn't expect Sohoku to take the initiative, much less hear Imaizumi's bold declaration that he would sprint at full power for the final 15 kilometers of the race. How could Todo let him get away with that? Accelerated to stop him, but Makishima immediately cut him off. As the Ace's most reliable domestique, he naturally took on the heavy responsibility of holding off opponents for Imaizumi. Watching Imaizumi gradually pull away, Fukutomi began to grow restless behind him. If he just let his opponent sprint away, wouldn't he be handing over the championship on a silver platter? So tossing aside any complex strategy, he pushed to his absolute limit to catch up with Imaizumi. Zanius Imaizumi didn't back down for a single second. Instead, he took the initiative to provoke Fukutomi. Since Fukutomi is always boasting about his strength, today they'd put it to the test to see who is truly the strongest. With that, once more, he shifted up another gear, provoked Fukutomi, refused to be outdone. He accelerated immediately to pull up alongside him. The two of them sprinted ahead quickly, leaving the main pack far behind. But Imaizumi still wasn't satisfied. Meanwhile, Todo was still being completely shut down by Makishima. Todo had assumed this was a calculated Sohoku strategy, but Makishima claimed he was just as much in the dark. However, he could venture a guess at Imaizumi's intent. Instead of waiting for the final sprint, he chose to force an early showdown. It was a gamble that might just yield unexpected results. Realizing the situation, Todo grew frantic. fearing Fukutomi might fall into a trap ahead. But there was no way Makishima would let him through easily. He was determined to hold the line for Imaizumi. On the other front, Imaizumi had already built a significant lead. He had managed to gap Fukutomi by over 50 meters. In this moment, he was deaf to the cheers, completely immersed in his own zone. Whether it was the gradient of the climb or the optimal line, Maizumi was making all the right calls instinctively. He could even anticipate what was about to happen next. At this moment, he and the bike were one. Every cell in his body was attuned to his surroundings. If he could just maintain this state of flow, then he is absolutely confident he can defeat Fukutomi. Meanwhile, further back on the course, Ishigaki was gasping for air as he rode, and when he saw the support vehicle ahead, he finally reached his limit and collapsed on the side of the road, while Midozuji burst forward with lightning speed.
Coco, there's delicious food nearby?
His teammate was on the verge of collapse. Yet the man didn't care at all. Instead, he forced him to speed up until his energy was completely drained. Only then did Midosuji gallop away in satisfaction. In his eyes, discarding every disadvantage is the ultimate racing style in a road race. Meanwhile, the duel between Tuju and Makishima continues. One is anxious, desperate to catch up with the leaders. The other is resolute, doing everything to block his opponent. Both hold steadfast to their convictions, refusing to back down. Just as their fierce battle reached its peak, Midosuji came swaying up from behind, seeing the two ace climbers completely exhausted. He couldn't help but snicker behind his hand. Then, with a sudden burst of power, he overtook Makishima in an instant. An undeterred Makishima tried to move to block him, but his trembling legs had already reached their limit. Just when it seemed no one could stop him, a young rider in blue suddenly charged out. He caught up with Midosuji at an overwhelming speed. Incredibly, Manami took the initiative to challenge Midosuji. Midosuji, feeling underestimated, refused to be outdone. The two began a head-to-head pursuit. Sight left Makishima behind them, filled with anxiety. If Manami and Midosuji actually catch up to the aces, then Imaizumi will be left completely isolated. In the next second, Onoda appeared in his line of sight. Makishima suddenly had a bold idea. He decided to send Onoda after the two leaders to protect their ace as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, at this very moment, the intense chase between Manami and Midosuji is underway. Yet in this high-stakes race against time, Manami never loses his smile, which makes Midosuji feel utterly nauseated. He thought Onoda was creepy enough. He didn't expect this guy to be even more unsettling with that joy. To assert his dominance, Midosuji uses an extreme riding style to seize the inside line first. At this moment, he is a mere 15 centimeters away from the grass, but for Midosuji, this is just routine. With a sudden burst of power, he instantly opens up a gap with Manami, but this is still not enough to satisfy Midosuji. To truly break someone, you don't just defeat them, you must destroy them mentally. So he proposes a wager: whoever reaches the ace ahead first wins, and the loser shall never attempt to overtake the winner again. However, this extreme bet doesn't intimidate Manami at all. Instead, it ignites his fiery competitive spirit. In an instant, a mysterious power emanates from within him, as if a sleeping lion has finally awakened. Manami is dead serious now in his pursuit of the ultimate limit. He even takes his bike onto the dirt shoulder. Midosuji is panicked. This riding style is pure madness. As the craziest of the crazy, how could he possibly lose? He begins to sprint, contorting his upper body at an extreme angle. But this speed means nothing to Manami in his eyes. Only the brink of death is the true limit.
Wait, how is that even possible? Narrowing his eyes, Adus Makapaka.
From what we've seen so far, we can discover Arakita initially joined the cycling club due to his competitive nature, and the author makes us realize that instead of complaining or running away, it's better to immerse yourself in an elite environment and push your limits through challenges. Dwelling on the past or self-doubt will only lead to stagnation. Only by looking up and facing your goal can you sprint with all your might. When riders like Arakita and Naruko pull for the team until they are completely spent, it demonstrates the sportsmanship where team glory outweighs personal gain. But the moment they are dropped, it also reveals the truth about competition and life. Progress inevitably involves parting and sacrifice. Only by accepting this cruelty can one move forward with resolve. The rivalry between Hakone and Sohoku is actually a case of mutual growth. A powerful opponent forces you to become a stronger version of yourself. The story proves that reality can be overturned, but first you must learn to grip the handlebars tight in the mud, dare to charge toward the steep climbs that once terrified you.